Okay, well, Lindsay is doing the good work down at the state, so I am stepping in for this meeting to fulfill my role as vice chair. Um, so I will call this meeting to order pending a quorum, and you have indicated there is a quorum. Any more formality that needed on that to call it out? Okay. Well, let's run through our roll call today. I know Lindsay's really good with these questions at the beginning of roll call, and I will say, how about the last place you've traveled to? I just got back from Mexico really late last night, so that's my answer. I brought the sun with me, so kidnapped it and brought it back here. So I see next on my list here, I see Ed Caviello.
Edward Coviello with PRTPO. Haven't traveled much lately. I did move back from Denver.
BC, right? All right, Dick Taylor.
Hi, good morning. My last travel was we had a cruise from Barcelona to Fort Lauderdale.
Right. David Forte.
David Fort, Kitsap County. That's all right. Kitsap County actually just was in last week, was in Chicago.
Good. Marty Allen.
The last place I went was Seattle. I don't know if that already counts, but I went to Seattle for New Year's and it was pretty cool.
That does count.
Yeah, thank you.
Gunnar Fred Chris. Sorry.
All right. Close Frederickson.
Fredrickson, sorry.
Yep. Portland Swap Meet.
And then Sarah, do you want to share your adding everybody
Yeah,
here?
yeah. I was last trip was to Missoula.
Brendan Meyer.
Clallam Transit, City of Port Angeles, filling in for Lindsay today, and Mexico City.
All right. Nicole Gauthier.
Hello, Nicole Gauthier from Jefferson Transit. Last fun trip I did was to Walla Walla for a weekend.
Good wine over there. Mike French.
Hello, Mike French from Clallam County Commissioner, and my last trip was down to Cancun for spring break. But the exciting thing is this next week, I will get to go out to Boston to be on an rural economic development panel conference at Harvard, along with Commissioner Greg Brotherton from Jefferson County and the president of Peninsula College in Port Angeles, Dr. Susie Ames. So I'm excited for that.
Fun. John Clausen.
Yes, John Clausen, Executive Director of Kitsap Transit, and I just came back about a week or so ago from Austin, Texas.
Yes. And Amy Asher.
Hi, Amy Asher, General Manager of Mason Transit, and I just returned from spring break at Seaside.
Miranda Nash.
Miranda Nash, Jefferson Transit, and fiscal agent for PRTPO. I also was in Walla Walla, but I did not stay the weekend. I was there for work, so.
Yeah, we don't let our Jefferson Transit folks get too far.
No.
Ed Stern.
Yeah. Morning, all. Ed Stern, Deputy Mayor, City of Hallsville. I was visiting Gorst, and I was there for about 3 weeks fighting the traffic.
Feels like it sometimes. Gary Anderson.
Good morning, Gary Anderson, Commissioner Port of Bremerton.
Randy Netherland, Mason County.
Randy Netherland, Mason County Commissioner. I just had my first dream vacation. I went through the Panama Canal.
Well, all right. Catherine Frazier.
Good morning, everybody. Catherine Frazier from the Port of Port Angeles. My last fun trip was a long weekend up to Victoria, BC. Coho Ferry.
Great. And I don't know everybody well enough to recognize who G. Blush might be. Is that one of our members?
Yes, that's George Blush.
George Blush, okay.
Yeah.
George Blush, you been anywhere lately? Well, we can't hear you. It looks like you're unmuted, but we don't hear you. So we'll bump over to Rachel Anderson.
I'm Rachel Anderson, Deputy Mayor of Sequim, and I came in a little late, but it sounds like the last fun trip was probably the last couple weeks of December. I got to take my first staycation in 4 years, and that was very restful and much needed.
Nicholas Dosti.
Yeah, howdy there, City of Sequim. Last trip was to Tri-Cities.
And then George Missouri from WashDOT. We wanted to hear your trips too.
Trips, plural.
Or
Wish.
most recent place you've
Yeah,
been.
George Mazer, WashDOT Olympic Region. I did some skiing in Utah last month.
Excellent. All right. Well, thanks for humoring the question, everybody. I think I got everybody. And we have a quorum, so we're going to keep rolling through this meeting, and we get to my other screen. Okay, so we're going to approve the agenda and consent calendar. Anybody care to make a motion on that?
So moved.
Second.
Ben,
Yes,
if I could, Judy noticed she's not here today, but she called me a couple days ago. I neglected to include her on the list of attendees, and I will update that. She did actually second the motion, so she was there. But so I just wanted to make that amendment, I guess, if I could, to meeting correction.
Yeah, and I came in late, but I didn't announce myself, so that's fine on there. Great. So anybody wishing to not approve the minutes? A different way here. Okay. Then that is moved. Okay. Sorry, my screens are confusing me. Get back to my agenda here. All right, so now we're going to, the first item of business is reviewing the draft SFY 2026 to 2027 UPWP, and this obviously is for Thera to help us go through this.
Yeah, so this is your Unified Planning Work Program for the next 2 years. Your budget operates on a state fiscal year. And so this is every 2 years you go through this process at this time to take a look at the revenue that is projected to come in and look at your work program requirements and put together this work plan. So, so what you have in front of you, for those who've been around for a while, it should look pretty familiar. For those of you who the UPWP may be a new thing, it's much of it is sort of boilerplate, and the activities are pretty broken out into some pretty simple ways of thinking about it. So program administration are things like meetings and support and all that kind of stuff. And you'll see the activities listed in there. Planning is planning, and coordination. You'll see all those kind of activities in there. The tip is the third sort of task, and that you'll see that called out specifically. And then task 4 has nothing in it right now, but that is a part of the UPWP, a part of your, that we hold for if you are able to, if you have the revenue to sort of direct some part of this work program, sort of outside of, like what you have to do, the kind of things that you want to do, or, the policy maker directed activities. We are looking at a budget next year of that's the same as the current biennium that you're operating in right now. So no increase there. The other thing I would point out in the brief is that we have a requirement to update the Human Services Transportation Plan this next biennium. An update of that plan is due in December of 2026. In the past, PRTPO has been offered funding, supplement to do that work, but we are in a difficult budget year, and as you all know, and we have not yet been offered any supplemental funding. So this draft UPWP is structured to so that you could accomplish that update within your existing budget. And that update is important because that's what it's sort of an eligibility thing for members who want to apply for consolidated grants. So it's an important thing. But when we did the update 4 years ago, or almost 4 years ago, we knew going forwards that funding might be tight. And so it's structured in a way that if you don't get any additional funding, you can accommodate that update in your work program. It won't be maybe as much as you might want to do, but you can take care of things that need to be taken care of with the budget that's available. If what has happened in the past happens this time around and PRTPO is offered supplemental funding, this is some revenue in your existing budget that could free up for you to direct to some other activities. And so that's why I was pointing out that task 4 doesn't have anything in there now, but it might well have something in it, before things are done. The other thing that you have coming up this next biennium, and this is reflected in year 1, is there'll be a transition. You'll have a new coordinator coming in, and that first year, that's just we're trying to set everything up so it runs real smooth and efficiently, but let's be real, it's going to take a little while to get everything sorted out. And so we've put some extra funding into that year 1 and not put too many other expectations into that year. We may not need, the extra revenues that were in there. And if so, then this time next year, you can direct those somewhere differently for year 2. So we're just trying to hedge our bets a little bit on that first year. So I think, and the other thing I would call your attention to, this is actually really important, Appendix A is something that you include in your UPWP. These are unfunded planning needs that if you had a little bit more money, these are things you'd like to be doing. We are trying with this UPWP, even though we're a little teeny tiny bit, cart before the horse on this, we are trying to identify in that things that also are going to correspond to the action plan in your RTP that you'll adopt in June, which we'll be talking about that later. So these sort of small bite-sized next steps that can, as we're sort of saying, get the ball rolling on some of those tough topics that you all identified over this past 18 months or so as regional priorities. So that's in Appendix A, and I would encourage you, if you haven't already, to take a look at that, because that is definitely tying back to the RTP, and if we are off track there, that would be this, sooner rather than later would be a good time to know that. So I think that's basically the overview of it. I will be coming back to you in June, asking for your approval. Whatever changes you want to make to it, if you have ideas on that today, I will try to accommodate those. We are meeting with WashDOT next week for our annual check-in with them on our work program and progress and all that kind of stuff. So if you have changes you want to make, I will do my best to accommodate that before we sit down for that review. Otherwise, I'll be coming back to you next meeting to get this approved. So long briefing. Happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, this is the first reading, and that would be it.
Yeah, so we'll open up the floor for anybody that has any thoughts on this that might help us get closer when we come into the June decision-making time. Anybody want to speak up here?
Yeah, I'll just say thanks for drawing our attention to that appendix. There's some really good ideas in that appendix, and to see them in the unfunded spot is, it's tough. That convening the Hood Canal Bridge Advocacy Group to talk about it, that's something I know we've talked about for a very long time. And it's a great idea. And so, yeah, we want to see that stuff get across the finish line, but we understand the situation that everyone's in, especially at the state level.
And Mike, that's exactly the kind of a thing that if PRTPO gets supplemental funding to do the Human Services Transportation Plan update, if you all had another 30,000 or whatever I've got in there for that you could pick something off that list, or maybe pick a couple of things. You can do big things without spending a lot of money on it. So that's what we're striving for in that list.
Would anybody else weigh in there? All right, well, obviously we also trust your able hands here there to get us to the next step here.
Okay.
So we will revisit this in June.
Yeah. So the next thing is the bylaws review. So this is, we're trying to comply with what is in PRTPO's bylaws, and those bylaws call for them to be reviewed every 2 years by the board. And in years past, we've convened, you all have appointed a subcommittee to do that work. And we would typically be appointing that subcommittee at this meeting. And then that subcommittee would meet once or twice between now and June, and then come back in June with a recommendation as to whether any changes are needed to the bylaws. And if no changes are needed, then, and that was what happened the first time, we just revalidated them and moved on. 2 years ago, the subcommittee had, we actually went into it knowing that there were some changes needed, and the subcommittee convened a couple of times and recommended some, I'm going to call them mostly housekeeping. Most of them were like housekeeping updates. Came back to the board in June. At that time, the board said, yeah, we do want to, those are things that we want to pursue. And so then we met a couple of more times over the summer, completed those updates, and you all adopted them in October. That process is beginning again today. I have not heard of any issues with the bylaws as they currently stand. And so the executive committee agreed that it would be appropriate to ask you all if anybody has any concerns that we know of. Do we need to appoint a subcommittee to address them? And if not, maybe we can just do this with the board for both first reading and the final approval. So I'm coming to you today to ask if anybody has has read the bylaws and has any changes that you think need to be made to make them more effective, and or whether we need to appoint a subcommittee to do that.
All right, sorry, I was a little distracted there by childcare. So I missed the last part. Or we just open up for discussion on this?
Just, if there's any, I'm just kind of looking for direction if there is a need to appoint a subcommittee, or if not, I'll just bring this back to you in June for you all to revalidate the bylaws and say this go round we did not need to make any changes.
Sorry, the battery ran out on his video at just the wrong time. Great. Well, that sounds good. Any discussion? I don't see any hands up, but if you did have any. Great. Well, then let's move on to the next. Just a second. 6-year-olds do not know what a minute means. Okay. So basically, is there any interest in forming a bylaws committee? We were hoping to see if it would be a ground up opportunity if people want to review and speak up to us, to the greater group, rather than automatically running it. So, or trotting one out. So if there's no interest now, it could still be convened later.
Our point was just we did not want to twist people into a subcommittee and go through the effort of scheduling a meeting if we don't need to. That's really what we're kind of getting at. So would anybody be opposed? Maybe that would be a better, would anybody be opposed if we do not convene a subcommittee and we just bring these back to you in June to revalidate? I'm going to take that.
Being no opposition, well, thumbs up.
Okay.
And let's go ahead with that plan. Yeah. Great. Okay. We're quickly moving through this then. We're talking about how quickly this meeting might go with a beautiful sunny day. I think we are motivated to get back out there, aren't we? So the Peninsula RTP Online, initial orientation and overview.
Yeah. So this is the first time that you're going to see the working draft. You're going to hear me keep saying this over and over. It's a working draft. It's a working draft. It's still under development. This is the first time you're going to see it. And it will be coming back to you in June. And we will be asking for your approval of it then. So in effect, I'm sort of walking you through this as a first read. And you will have a couple of months between now and June to familiarize yourself with it. And so before I do that walkthrough, I just want to give you just remind you of what this is and what we've been doing and what we're aiming for here. This is an update of the long-range regional transportation plan. You are required to adopt and maintain one. We are, based on the direction from the board about 2 years ago, we are converting, with this update, we're converting what has always just been a document that was outdated within a week of its adoption, static documents being as they are. We are converting that to an online format. And so from here on, the RTP will really be posted online. As a part of that, we're taking advantage of that disruption, if you would, to sort of rethink how we organize it and structure it. And I'll just tell you, this will be unlike anybody else's RTP. It'll be very specific to this region and the issues that you are working on and the resources that you have. So we exploded it. Basically, we exploded the RTP apart. And what you're going to see as we get going is that it's organized into two, what we're calling right now frameworks, a policy framework and a planning framework. And again, we're going to walk through it, but I just want to tell you the policy framework are all the guts of it that satisfy compliance requirements that much of it, quite frankly, nobody will ever look at except for our colleagues at WashDOT headquarters, Ed and I, and perhaps some of our local members staff who might reference it for grant applications. It's just not something that, you know, it's static content. The other part of it, what we're calling the planning framework, is going to be the part that is most responsive to you and the region's needs. And that'll be the part that we just sort of keep current going forwards. And we'll talk about it as we go through it, but by keeping it current, what we're talking about is incorporating just your regular work program as means of updating it. So if you'll recall, and we're going to look at this on here in a minute, last fall, you all integrated the RTP project list into the RTIP development process so that each year you'll be able to refresh your RTP project list and make sure that it fully supports the current needs of our members and their funding pursuits, you know, what's right there on the horizon. So that's something where you're going to be able to keep that fresh without a separate standalone effort. Same thing for what you're going to find in the planning framework. The sort of the strategic agenda links very tightly with your transportation outlooks that you do every year, where you step back and you sort of take a look over the horizon and you identify a very small handful of things that you want to raise with our legislative delegation. Those two things are going to be sort of linked together going forward so that it reflects what this region's most important planning concerns are. And the action plan that we're going to talk about relates back to that work program and things like that, what's in that Appendix A. What are those steps that you all can take as PRTPO to move the needle on some of these big, huge issues? So I'm sharing that with you because it matters for what I'm going to show you as we walk through this RTP. The other thing that I'll share with you is that we are trying our best to make the navigation work so people can come into this information from different places. Not everybody might be coming to the website looking for the regional transportation plan. They might be coming to the website trying to figure out what the executive board's important planning priorities are, or legislative priorities. That might be very different than staff from a stakeholder organization coming in looking for information. So you'll see that too as we go through. So I'm going to share my screen here. Let me ask before I do that, are there any questions, just basically what we're trying to accomplish and what this update's all about before we get going on that? Okay. Please stop me as we get going. After I get going, if you have questions or want to know more about something, because I'm not going to. I'm going to orient you to it, and then I'm going to turn you loose. I think I've already turned you loose with access to it. So it will be accessible. So you should be seeing. Are you seeing? Yeah, you should be seeing that. Okay. Would somebody just give me a thumbs up that you're seeing
Yes.
that? Okay, thank you. Thank you. I can't quite tell right now. So this is our website. Hopefully you all are familiar with it. If you go to the documents page of our website, that's where you find all of PRTPO's documents that we produce, maintain, and things like recommendations that come out of our processes. You'll also find here the current legislative folio. But what we're interested in are our core plans. We've identified 2 of them that you all are responsible for. We were just talking about the Human Services Transportation Plan, but what we're focused on is the Regional Transportation Plan. So if you click on that, you are now inside of the Peninsula RTP Online. Just really putting that online into this. And this is built using sort of our ArcGIS capabilities and website capabilities. And so what you're going to see is something where we're trying to make this engaging and interesting to people who might be your colleagues, your staff, your friends, whatever. This is written for maybe not necessarily a regional transportation planner audience. We're also, what we're trying to do in here is really, I'm going to say, make people aware of who and what PRTPO is and what you all do. So, you'll see that in here. There'll be a little bit of background, a little bit of orientation. We're actually telling people how to navigate this RTP online. And here, as I said, you'll see there's a policy framework and a planning framework. Some people like to click links. They look for that kind of thing in the language. We've got ours set up also to be able to do it from here. I'm going to show you, remember I told you I exploded it and I've created a policy framework that is a lot of the things that are just static over time. So we talked earlier about our vision, goals, and policies. You have your vision, goals, and policies satisfy all state requirements. If we had it to do over, I might recommend 6 goals and 4 policies for each. But instead, we've got like 24, 22 goals and about 135 policies that cover practically any possible thing people can think of. So we popped them out, gave them their own standalone place for our partners who may need to reference them. They're putting together a grant application and they want to know, is there, or do we have any policies about, public transportation? We've hyperlinked it so that you can skip right to that. So this is a way that we're trying to make the things that you already have to do a little bit more functional, usable, but we're not going to spend a lot of time going back and revisiting them right now. You'll also find in here other things like the RTP project list. We know that we need to have PDFs of some things, and so that's something there. The agenda and action plan, you've been seeing this. I'm going to show you the sort of what you'll see here will end up being, again, we have to have something printable. These are not, the section is under development, but you can see, I think I shared this with you at your last meeting. It's been tweaked some since then, and I'll show you what we're doing. We're always putting the date up on the top as these things evolve. So we'll have like a PDF that'll be a one-pager for your strategic agenda, as well as a one-pager for your action items that we'll have out here. And this is where you can kind of go and see, here are the issues that came out of those tough topics that you have raised over the years in your transportation outlooks. And these up at the top are the ones that we really focused on as a part of this update, where you all said these of everything on this list, this is where we'd like to really lean in now. We think we can make some progress or advance some of these issues. So those will all be up here. I've got placeholders. So this, like I said, this is sort of, let me go back to where it was. Sharing too much with you too fast. So that's, so they'll be able to get into that through the framework. Then the planning framework, oh, it is working. This is the part that's going to be most specific to what you all are working on now and the priorities that you want the region to focus on in your capacity as an RTPO. And so people will come into this. This is what they call story map. Remember I was telling you that there are multiple ways of navigating. So, and I'm just going to show you that when you come in here to take a look, you'll be able to, jump right to some specific things. But you can also just kind of scroll down. And again, it's a rarefied group of people who find regional transportation plans interesting. And so we're trying to broaden that interest and make this more interesting. So you'll see a lot of visuals in it compared to what you would normally see. We're trying very hard to demonstrate, just even by visuals and all, that this is a multimodal transportation system, what that means, putting all that in here without sort of talking down on people. We've also tried to make sure that we're representative of conditions and things across the region. So you'll be able to scroll down, look at things. I'm interested very much in your thoughts as we go forward on tone. We're trying not to sound like bureaucrats in this. So we'll see whether or not how close we hit the mark on this. We're pointing out problems, but we're not getting down to measuring it and LOS or anything. Talking about the importance of preservation and the inadequate funding that's available, and then you come on down again. Just sort of what is regional transportation plan? Why do you do what you do, and putting that into that historic regional context. The work that you did in 1995, well, your predecessors did in 1995, was really foundational for everything that you're doing now, everything that is in local agency comprehensive plans, all of that. So we're just providing in just a couple of paragraphs that context, talking again about the regional plan, what it is, what it isn't, and then going right into this RTP. You'll, again, as we said, you'll be able to get back and forth. So that static policy framework we were just in, you can get there from here. But this is really about, the bulk of this is about what you all are, the direction that you all are setting. The strategy it's one of those things that we sort of need to speak to meet our statutory requirements, but we try to do it in a way that is easy to relate to. And then this is where I was telling you that we're trying to integrate the work that you're doing with transportation, with your transportation outlook and that legislative agenda with your RTP. And because those issues fed directly into the regional agenda, we thought it was appropriate to sort of call that out here and help, again, users who are coming into this. They might be coming into it from the transportation outlook side of things. So making that connection here. Oh, and I should also say, we've just about run out to almost the end of as far as I've gotten on the pretty aesthetics part of it. So like there'll be a lot of things still to be done, but most of it's aesthetics and navigation. This is now where we get into that strategic regional agenda. So this is, we're just a very short little thing here. This doesn't even really need to change in the future, but this is where those issues will come up. So we have a one pager on the one hand, because you need to be able to have those talking points, just talking points. But what is the context? What is the regional context behind these things? What is the issue driving the things that you're trying to accomplish? So this is all about that agenda and those tough topics. And I've only got a few of them in here, but I just want to show you what we're striving for. So improve Hood Canal Bridge operations. What is the concern? What you have focused on to date with the transportation outlook and all has been, what is the concern? And it's about, we're very specific, it is about unpredictable, the impacts due to unpredictable openings for recreational sailboats that are too tall to fit underneath the span on the east end. That's an efficiency issue, a Coast Guard matter, but there's also infrastructure deficiencies on the east end of the bridge that have negative impacts. It causes negative impacts on the surrounding communities that need to be addressed. It doesn't say what the solution should be to any of these things. All what your aim is, what this piece is saying is that PRTPO, the executive board, wants to do what it can to help improve Hood Canal Bridge operations. It wants to call attention to the fact that those operations need to be looked at because there are things that can be done to improve them. This is going to correspond directly to, for each of these, especially the big ones, they're going to correspond directly to action items on that action list, but we're sort of trying to keep those separate. This is really big picture, regional context. What is the issue that we want to get at? And then the action plan is what can we as PRTPO do about it? Next one. So this is an issue. Also on your list are opportunities, major opportunities that the region could tap. And PRTPO has said for a long time that it wants to expand long distance intercity bus service. It's an important thing in the region. And so what this lays out, the concern is that this is an important part of a rural transportation system and ours is incomplete. You cannot actually get around the Olympic Peninsula without some very, very careful trip planning. There are 4 different transit agencies serve the Olympic Peninsula. And they do have coordination among them. You can get around, but it's not like a true intercity route. It's just something that can be done. And so what we'll see over again on the action plan side of things will be, and they show up in Appendix A of your UPWP, are some next steps. What could PRTPO do to advance this? We know that there's not money for the Dungeness line to do it. We tried, we're going to get more frequency, but they're not going to go around the loop. But what else could be done? Well, there are things that could be done, and they won't cost a lot of money. And then that will help the region, us, the partners, know if this is worth looking at closer. And if it's not, maybe this comes off the list or whatever. But there are things that you can do to ask that question. I'm not sure if we're going to change the fix our ferries bit, but this is another one. This has been, I think, on your radar ever since I've been working with you, that ferry reliability needs to be improved. Again, this is laying out the case for that. What are the issues? Also making sure that we're talking about marine highways here, that it's not, we don't get just so focused on Washington State ferries, but that there are others also who use the marine highways and the importance of the reliability. I'm going to take a really quick second to let you all know that in June, Representative Nance, that's his slogan there, Fix Our Ferries, it will be coming to talk with you about what they're trying to do on the legislative side with the ferries. So, and what we're looking for, and we don't have very many of these for the ferries and the action plan, what we're looking for are, what are some things that you all can do? It's one thing to keep saying, fix our ferries. What is it that PRTPO can do to help support that effort? So that's what he's going to be coming to talk with you all about in June. So we've got this in here, not too much in the action plan for this one though right now. Maybe we'll have something else for that in the future. So you'll get the idea. This is, so we'll have something as fleshed out as this for sort of those top concerns that we had the little red line around on that PDF, and then little shorter things below that, and that you'll be able to keep that updated real easily over time, as you know, remove something from this or add something to it as conditions change. But we're really trying to make this be tied directly to those topics that you think are really important for this region to consider, because they either are already affecting the regional transportation system, or they will affect it or your abilities as owners and operators of that system to do what you need to do in the future. So that is your that is how the sort of regional agenda is shaping up. And so, you know, you'll be like I said, if you just want to do a quick skim down through the RTP, you'll be able to do that and you'll get the gist of everything. Or if you want to do a little deeper dive into the regional agenda, that will be there. Similarly with the action plan, we'll have there's a short little thing here that says, what is the action plan? What's its relationship to the UPWP? What are we trying to do here? Again, making it very specific to things that PRTPO or any of you as individual partners can do. I don't like the way that one's turning out yet in the story map, but there'll be something similar to the other, where it just gives you a little bit more regional context. So if you go to look for funding in the future, this time next year, if WashDOT has funding available, these are things that you can point to in the action plan and say, we want money to do this, or we want money to do these 3 things. It's going to make it possible for you to be very nimble and responsive to funding opportunities as they arise. So those are there. And then also the project list. Oh, okay. So right now you have a project list. It's a PDF over there. I showed you over on the policy framework, because always got to have that. But we are going to expand that a little bit. The plan is to take the online mapping that we're doing right now for the regional tip every year, which is putting, using our GIS platform. Instead of doing that, use that opportunity to showcase the RTP projects. And the whole aim with these RTP projects is to highlight a few that are really priorities for you as members. If everything in your tip, if everything in your 6-year tip is equally important for funding pursuits this next year, you have no priorities. The important thing here is to figure out, of everything that you want to do in the next 6 years, what is that 1 or 2 or 3 projects you want to highlight here in the RTP? And we're going to put those into this online map format. The other thing we're going to include on this, which we think is important, is to include on this the projects that or have just sort of, they're on your watch list. These are the big, giant regional projects that may take a generation or more to complete. So Gorst, the East Squim, Simdars road improvements, the Port Angeles Tumwater truck route, maybe the rest of the 305 corridor. There are some huge projects that are in the works at various stages that you don't want to lose track of, even if they're not in somebody's tip. And so that's what we're also going to include up here. And I have just to, we're a little prototype here. It's not working quite right. So I've got to get some kinks worked out before I put the other ones in. But so here we'll have a map that'll show, like in this case, Gorst. And when I get it working right, we'll zoom in to Gorst. And this all has to get restructured a little bit too, but you'll be able to put some information up here that'll be able to stay up here for a while, not take too much to update it, that will have information on the project. It's not the tip information. Quite honestly, the stuff in the tip, this is not a list for Nancy Huntley, who is about the only person who really knows about or cares about what all those little codes are in the tip. This is for the public. It's for you. It's for your colleagues to be able to see at a glance. It's for you when you're talking to your own legislators about the big regional projects, that if you wanted to, you could direct them here and they'll get access to all the most current information that we have available on those projects. So we'll have that, we'll have a online, when you adopt your when you update your list in October, there'll be a new component of that, which will be these standing projects that we'll include reference to. Ed, I see, what have you got on, it's probably about the online map or?
Yeah, for the RTP list, when do you want to formally ask?
Oh, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that a little bit later and with the TAC, but yeah, we're gonna walk through that. I was just showing how this is gonna get there.
Okay.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to share with you, again, this is not a linear plan, so things move around, but this is an example of how we're taking the work, the direction that you gave us, and then you're doing some stuff, and then we're incorporating it elsewhere in the work program. And so one of the tough topics is what happens when Main Street is a state highway? How do we reconcile old infrastructure, the design of old infrastructure with perhaps changes in land use that are generating like transit and bike and walk trips that old infrastructure did not accommodate. So that was sort of the tough issue that came up. And then as we dug into it, we looked for ways to support WashDOT in its responsibilities for dealing with the complete streets. And you might remember that in October at the executive board retreat, you all did these mapping exercises and you identified places where you thought might be targets, might be candidates because the land use is maybe, generating non-motorized trips or other kinds of trips that are not accommodated safely or as well as they ought to be. And so we've been working on this with the TAC. Now, this is not done yet. We've got one, the TAC is working on this now. We're going to be going back to them with this again in May, but this is an example of a product. It will not be in the RTP, but the RTP, it supports the RTP and it comes up out of that strategic agenda. And so what we're working on is to have a resource that local agencies and WashDOT can use just to support coordination. There's no implicit anything can be done in here. There's so many factors out of your control, but the intent is to let George or his colleagues know when they're doing a paver, let's say up in North Kitsap County, that they could look at a list and go, oh, SR 104, yeah, we're going to be doing a project on SR 104. And then we've got information there that they could go and click and find out what all, where's it not going to, oh, there we go. was already there. So they'll be able to go pull up information, what we know about that project. What all this is doing is providing regional context. So they'll be able to click on that point and then open up, see where it is, in the regional context. They'll get information here. Is it on a state highway? Is it in a city or UGA? What's going on land use wise within a quarter mile? Other factors that it's just meant to provide input to Olympic region as they're looking at it. And so they understand why it is that PRTPO through this effort is sort of saying, hey, when you are doing a paver on 104, would you come take a look in here and see what's going on? And then when they, I think it's, oops, I just screwed it up. Well, I'm not even going to save that, but they'll be able to go in and see, zoom in, automatically zoom in and see what are the issues that are driving the concern that the local agency has. So we're going to continue to refine this with WashDOT, but again, an example of within your work program, without a lot of extra resources, you are doing things that are supporting regional coordination and collaboration between partners, which is your role, is to facilitate that coordination. So, and George, this is probably the first time you're seeing this, so I'm glad to see your hand up.
Yeah, I'll give you a chance to take a break here and catch a breath. So on this particular item, just for everybody else, Sarah and I have talked a lot about this, and as you go to fill it out, what is most helpful to WashDOT in this context is if you can get very specific on locations, not like a 2-mile corridor of importance, but specific intersections, portions of corridor that are very short. Because what we have to do in our pre-design, we do a prioritization, and a lot of our pre-design involves identifying what we can defer to a later implementation. We don't like to, but that's a reality of funding. So knowing where you believe there are priorities for a local agency, it will be a really critical input to deciding what gets implemented immediately and what might be put on the waiting list.
And that's really good for those of you who sit on both the board and the TAC. That's something we'll be striving to provide greater specificity. And some of these things may come off because they're just, when they can't really be boiled down to a specific location, or we just define them better. But that thank you for that clarification, George, because it's what the other thing, and I just want to say it out loud because I've assured George of this. By PRTPO doing this, we'll make it very clear there is nothing implicit in this process that says, oh, if you've got a dot on this map, you're going to have some complete streets treatments coming. That is not what this is about. This is about supporting coordination and communications, and providing that regional context that is part of that whole practical solutions process. So that's what that's all about there. And again, those of you who are on the TAC, this will be a big part of our discussion in May. Let's see, what else would I share with you? The other thing, another thing that I do want you to know about, and we're working on this with the TAC as well, is one of your requirements as a RTPO, what is in RCW 4780, is that you need to determine whether the regional transportation plan and local comprehensive plans are consistent, and you need to make a determination. We are going to, with this update, we're going to establish a standing statement of consistency that will be in place and documented and be in place until such time that a future board determines that somebody is out of compliance. The way the process has worked in the past is that every time there was an RTP update, Local agencies have completed, I think it looks like a 26-page form to demonstrate that their plans are consistent with the RTP. But frankly, since your very first plan was adopted and then the countywide planning policies were put into place, as long as those countywide planning policies and local comprehensive plans are consistent with the Growth Management Act and not challenged by the Growth Management Hearings Board, it would be very hard for us to not be consistent. In fact, if they're not consistent, it might be that the RTP is the thing that's not consistent, because that's the way it's written. You know, once the countywide planning policies are in place, they are governing. So that's what we're doing. We're establishing us with this update, I guess with your concurrence, we are establishing a standing statement of consistency that will have, like, your finding is thus, and the context for that, just so it can sit out there online for a long time. How did we come to this determination? What does it mean? What are the factors by which something might be deemed inconsistent in the future? Clarify that right up there. Clarify how any of this standing can be challenged. And also clarify very clearly that this has zero bearing. This is about the rural, the requirements of rural RTPOs. And Kitsap County, as it has for 30 some odd years now, has managed to maintain consistency both with the highly urban PSRC, all those jurisdictions and Kitsap Transit satisfy that, and at the same time they satisfy PRTPO's requirements. This has no bearing on PSRC's findings, but Kitsap members can say, and they will have documentation, that their stuff is consistent with PRTPO's regional plan. So that will be out there. Then there'll be a resolution on top of that, that then when an agency has to document for commerce that their RTPO has found their plan to be consistent with the RTP, it'll be right there, and they can pull it off and share that. So we're working on this language with the TAC. They're the ones, the local agency staff are the ones who are most often caught up in this. And this will be coming to you as a part of your final adoption package of the RTP in June. So I will point you to that. And as you're out there doing your exploring, that's what that consistency determination is about. So, so I've definitely talked a whole lot here. Well, actually, I won't stop sharing yet in case anybody has any questions. But is there, well, I'm just going to leave this up and just ask if anybody has any observations or feedback or requests or concerns about what you've seen.
I can start it off by just saying that what a great tour, and something so simple as the selection of the photos throughout all this really shows the complexity of what we're dealing with here. And I think that's good for policy wonks and lay people as well. Both of us to connect on this issue. Anybody have specific considerations? I'll also point out, that there is asked for, final feedback on this. Or you can correct me if I'm wrong, but by the 14th of May. But obviously, sooner the better. I would.
Yeah. and I will offer up to you all too that you've seen, what we're trying to do with this. Most of the words are in place. The formatting, the navigation, the links to the tools and the online mapping and all that kind of stuff still needs to be embedded. The aesthetics, needs a little bit of help with the aesthetics. So when you go out there, if you go out there over the weekend, because you got nothing better to do, it may be different if you go back and look at it in another week and a half, but it'll all be as close to draft as I think it's going to be by the end of April. And then the TAC will again have a little bit longer time. They also have access to this now. We'll go to the TAC in May and get any of their last feedback, and try to incorporate whatever we can in there at that point. And then we'll open up for public review and comment, and then it'll come, and again, your feedback is welcome throughout. But what we're striving for is, with your participation now and the participation of the TAC now, this early on, that your feedback now will help make sure that what we bring to you in June is something that you have no problem adopting, and that you feel that it actually really meets your needs. So that's what we're really striving for by giving you access to this, even though it's still in a working draft form.
Do you have any recommendation on how we might get this to other people, or other people in our regions that we're representing, to get their, get more feedback from the broader?
Yeah. What we're going to do is, in our outreach, so what we maintain, what I maintain in terms of a distribution list, I have a distribution list for the executive board with all the board members. I have a distribution list for the technical advisory committee, and I have a distribution list that's sort of a general information list. And so we will, when we notice this, and we'll do our formal notices as well, but I'm going to use that distribution list, and try to, send the notice out in a way that you all can then also, through your constituencies, you have very different constituents, than we do, but that input would really be helpful. And so you are part of our public involvement strategy. You're more connected to our communities, and you have a better, clearer idea of how this relates to your local plans and processes than anybody else. Your insights on this, on who needs to see this, are really valuable. We're not doing anything out in the real world. It's all online. The other thing we're doing is we're setting this up so that this will always be online. So that we will always welcome. This will all get fleshed out, but we will always welcome people's input. We do now, but I'm not sure that people really understand that. So we're also going to really focus people on this planning framework, because really at the end of the day, that's the thing that is probably of most importance to you. Not that all the GMA compliance stuff isn't important, but this is the stuff that shapes your work program and what you're going to be spending your time on. So we really want the public, whoever that public is, and it's as likely to be, other transportation stakeholders than, and I mean this with great fondness, John and Jane Q. Public. This regional transportation planning, much to the chagrin of my cohorts around the state. This is just sort of a weird esoteric thing for a lot of people. And so I'm expecting that most of the input that we get will be from, I'm going to say, like allies or stakeholder groups who understand what the RTPO is and why this matters. So however you all can, but we will give you an easy means to forward it on, and then we'll use all of our own standard outreach techniques. And so this will, like I said, this will get fleshed out. We'll have a little poll thing that they can easily give us input on, and then really encourage them to stay involved in whatever way makes sense to them.
Great. Anybody else want to weigh in here? Looking for a hand up if anybody wants to. Or just shout it out. It's a small enough group right now. I will say that I think this is a transition to the next topic. We're going there in just a moment. That this tour really highlights what large shoes someone is going to have to fill here. That I really appreciate that really detailed, but also broad walkthrough.
Well, and what we're doing is setting this up really to make it easy for the next person who's sitting here, because the big pieces will be in place. And then that person doesn't have to worry so much about what is GMA compliance all about and blah, blah, blah. They can focus really on the things that you all want to concentrate on. And so that's really how we're trying to set this up. And we want it to look nice, but not take a lot of effort to keep it looking nice. And we want it to have a long shelf life. So that's what we're striving for here.
Great. Well, I appreciate that. So, all right, we'll move on to the next one, but everybody can reach out to there at any point with feedback on this. And it does take a little time to go through it, but it is worth the tour. I mean, a self-guided tour as well. Okay, so yeah, like I said, that's a good transition because we would like to talk about the update on the PRTPO coordinator recruitment and transition plans. I imagine John might have something to say in this.
Yeah, I will kind of chime in on this. And as you all know, we have a contract with Thera as an external consultant, and we've been looking at what options are available for coming up with someone to take the reins from Thera when she retires. And we decided that the probably the best long-term approach would actually be for Kitsap Transit to hire a new planner in the planning position, and then we would allocate essentially 50% of that person's time to the PRTPO. So I brought that concept to my board, and they recently approved us going forward with the creation of a new position and the recruitment. So we're going to be starting the recruitment soon for to fill that position, and then our plan is to be able to have that position filled and provide a little bit of a crossover so that there can be a smooth handoff, a transition from Thera to this new position. So that's the plan that we're moving forward with currently. I would also add that I did have kind of a casual conversation, is how I would classify it, with one member of the Public Transit Division of DOT about possibly asking for a little bit of additional funding this year to help cover the cost of that overlap period. And he indicated that that probably would not be a problem. So once we determine more what that would look like, we'll be coming back with a request to submit DOT for a little bit of extra funding, again, to cover that expense of overlap. And then just as a quick aside, while I had a conversation, they also, I shared our general concern that we have about if there's any additional funding to do the human service part, that that would be wonderful, but please make sure that it would not be federal dollars that would be coming through, that it would be state dollars. And he assured me that that's the current discussion going on, that if those funds are going to be available, that they will be state dollars and they won't come with the same strings that the last time we did the federal update, or the update with the federal dollars. So it's kind of a quick update. Any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Anybody have any thoughts on this? It's obviously a really big decision, big move going forward here. But I'm very thankful for, on my side, that Kitsap Transit is able to and willing to do it this way. Amy Asher?
Yeah, I don't have any comments or anything to add to that, but I do want to thank John for being forward thinking and coming up with a good plan for a replacement that I think is going to be difficult to fill, especially if it were to be a standalone. So thank you for that.
George?
And I'm sorry I missed it. When is the expected period of overlap between Thera and the new hire?
I don't have a specific time frame, George, right now. We're kind of looking at the timing for recruitment and hiring and all of that. So it'll
So not this fiscal year, though. It would probably be sometime next fiscal year.
We'll have to wait and see. I can't say for sure.
Okay.
It may be, but when I talked with Don Chartok is who I talked with, and I told him that, you know, in general terms, we're talking about budget dust, so it would be, you know, I don't know. I would just be grabbing a number out of the air, but it would be significantly less than $100,000. So.
Thank you.
Any other comments on this topic? Okay, well, I think it's a much better position than that we're in right now than I was worried about it a couple months ago. So again, thanks to Kitsap Transit and John. Yeah, well, we're on to the public comment period. I don't see any members from the public here in my list of participants. Is there anybody that I'm missing?
Somebody joined.
Oh,
Nobody at Kitsap.
okay. Well, we're open for public comment. Anybody want to raise a hand? I don't see any. I'll speak slowly in case there's slow to it. Great. Well, let's go to the PRTPO member updates. Anybody want to apprise us of anything exciting?
Man, I would throw out one thing, just kind of an open invitation. Many of you know that we're in the passenger ferry business, and we've been exploring the possibility of developing a high-speed electric hydrofoil. And there's a company in Belfast that actually has developed one. They've set up an arrangement with a firm in the Puget Sound to actually construct them here in the Puget Sound. And they're going to be bringing their demonstration vessel here to Bremerton on May 5th. And they're going to be offering rides, just quick little rides in Sinclair Inlet so you can experience what it's like to ride in a hydrofoil boat, which I had the pleasure of doing a while back. So extend the invitation. If you're interested, please let me know, and we'll make sure that that we have a seat available for you when you want to come down and take a ride.
A fun opportunity. Anybody else? Well, okay. And then I just want to double check. Nobody from the public wanted to speak up and finally thought of something. All right. Well, I don't have anything else to say. You want to add anything else, Sarah? Great. Well, thank you all. Thanks for persisting with my dealing with my kid here and his iPad and that was running out of batteries. I will call this meeting adjourned and just get out into the sun, folks. All right.
Thanks.
Take care.